The family has already sailed 20,000 miles.
You all set?
They're now on the last leg of their journey, leaving the South Pacific island of Raiatea and heading for Australia, 3,500 miles away.
Australia, we were going to sell the boat and go back home and put the kids back to school and go back to work.
Okay, guys, come on, let's go.
The family has spent the last 21 months on John's pride and joy, an 80-foot catamaran, the Emerald Jane, bought from his 20 years of hard work in the construction industry.
There's a clanking sound up at the mast. Something that had never happened to us before.
You see anything?
Shackle.
Where? It's loose.
And the boom was now smashing into the mast repeatedly. And we wrestled with that problem for probably 2 hours.
But John and Ben can't fix the sail.
Yeah, I think we leave it for the night, Ben.
I say, look, we'll fix this thing in daylight.
Watch it inside.
We have to drop the mainsail down. And we continue on like that.
As dusk falls, John sets the boat's navigation system to avoid one of the many tiny islands that dot the Pacific Ocean. And the Emerald Jane heads into the sunset.
It's glorious. It's glorious. I'm just like at one with the universe.
I start to hear this scraping sound. It's very light. And I just think in my head, well, maybe it's a floating coconut palm or something we've just hit.
Go back to your picture on it. It's great.
There's this sharp bang sound.
Then it starts to get louder and louder.
I run into the salon. Like chalk on a board on steroids, man. It's just ripping our ears apart. And my son's voice coming from the cockpit, one word.
Reef! Reef!
He's screaming, reef.
We looked at each other in horror.
And in that same second, I hear this big boom.
I just got thrown a good 5-10 feet.
The Emerald Jane has smashed into a submerged coral reef. John slams the boat's engines into reverse. The boat grinds to a halt on the reef. But their ordeal has only just begun.
This giant wave hits the boat.
The ocean has punched its way through the hull of the boat.
The water just comes shooting through, exploding. I feel like I'm in the scene from Titanic. I just looked at John's eyes, and you can tell he's scared. He's really, really frightened. He doesn't know what to do, and I don't know what to do.
The whole dream of my life was all disintegrating right in front of my eyes. And they're screaming, I don't want to die, I don't want to die.
In just a matter of seconds, the Silverwood's idyllic sailing trip has turned into a living hell. The Emerald Jane is being ground into a reef in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and is being battered by violent waves.
I know that we're in a world, just a world of hurt.
Seawater is engulfing the vessel, and the cabin is slowly flooding.
Mayday, mayday, mayday.
This is the sailing vessel Emerald Jane. We're at latitude and longitude. I can hear French voices, just like static in the universe. But I can't get through.
The boat's satellite phone should work anywhere on Earth. It's a direct line to call for rescue.
And my hands are shaking so hard. I drop the phone, so the phone just dies.
One of these big waves breaks directly over the middle of the boat. Dad! I'm flat on my back. And I look down, and what I see is just impossible. That mast, that 80-foot mast, is laying right across my legs.
The huge force of the wave has snapped the Emerald Jane's mast.
This huge surge of electric pain just barrages it explodes in my brain.
I heard my dad scream.
The falling mast has also hit Ben, striking him on the head.
My head was just pounding, like my ears were ringing, and I could feel like, you know when you can feel your heartbeat in your head?
And the next thing I know, there's Ben's face, you know? He's got blood coming down both sides of his face, and he's looking down at me. And I pull myself up and doing a sit-up. I'm confronted with these two white bones, the remains of my lower leg, and they're shattered.
You can see the bones sticking out like toothpicks almost out of the side.
The mast has almost completely severed John's leg below the knee.
And beneath that, there's just this pool of blood that's spreading on the deck.
Ben tries to free his father from under the 2,500-pound mast.
This thing is 80 feet long. It's impossible.
And I couldn't like just pull it out.
He's losing huge amounts of blood from his shattered leg. And Ben knows that unless he can find a way to stem the flow, his dad has only minutes to live.
He was in a huge amount of trouble.
Dad!
I said, Ben, my leg's broken. I'm trapped. You're in charge of the boat now. You've got to take care of the family. I watched his eyes. I could watch his expression and how it changed. Becoming a man. I could see that come over his face. And he just looks at me and he says,
Dad!
Dad, I'm gonna get you out of here.
I really didn't think about what the actual burden was on me or the responsibility. My reaction was just to keep doing stuff.
Or his dad will die.
Within minutes, there's my son.
It's gonna hurt.
And he's got an idea. He takes that line and he wraps it around my thigh. And he's got these big screwdrivers.
I wrapped it around as many times as I possibly could and then linked it together.
Ben's tourniquet cuts the circulation to his dad's leg.
Without that effort, I probably would have died within 10 minutes.
With John pinned down beneath the immovable mast, the Silverwood family can do nothing but hunker down and pray for the waves to subside. But there's just no let-up.
I just remember those waves, the sound of those waves. You could just hear the roar get bigger and bigger. And closer, until finally the wave would strike.
Out of that whole horrible abyss that I was lost in, there just came this single word, and that word was no. I wasn't gonna quit, I was gonna fight. I was not going to give up. Out of nowhere, a huge wave slams into Emerald Jane. I see the mast, it's being lifted higher than ever before. In that same second, I pushed as hard as I could. And then the mast slapped back down on the deck and I was free.
But 3 hours under the mast have left John in a terrible condition.
It made my stomach turn just to see his leg just hanging by, I mean, literally a piece of skin.
I fell into an abyss of despair, like a free fall. I knew that I'd taken my wife and my kids out to this godforsaken reef. This whole thing was my idea. I understand completely what's going on. I was not concerned about myself. If there was no way to get me in, well, that was that.
Now, as head of the family, Ben is faced with getting the 3 young children off the boat and across the reef to the tiny outcrop of dry rock.
As soon as the wave broke and started to recede, that's when I jumped off the boat. The reef is so sharp, the little coral spikes would go right through my sandals. I had coral cutting my feet every time I took a step.
They're cutting up their legs every which way.
We have the waves breaking on our legs, and our legs are getting absolutely cut up. At that point, I gave my brother the little emergency beacon.
Hold this, get tight, yeah.
I told him, Jack, do not let go of this. This is our only way anyone can possibly find us.
You've got to get off the boat now, too. You've got to get off the boat.
Alone on the boat, John is now in the final stages of life. And he begins to give up.
There was no possibility of saving me out there. And I don't have any hopes whatsoever of being rescued. This little piece of boat that I'm on is going to just slide off the edge of the reef, and I'm going to sink a mile down to the bottom of the ocean.
But the thought of watching John die alone on the boat haunts Ben and his mum.
If we don't get him off the boat, he doesn't have a chance. He doesn't have a chance. I have to get him off the boat.
Ben decides to head back to the boat.
Mom, go to the life raft. I'm gonna go to Dad.
But the life raft is hopelessly tangled in a web of rope. Jean pulls at the life raft for over an hour.
Every bit of my mind, every bit of muscle I have, I'm grunting, I'm practically drowning out there. After about 40 minutes, I was completely exhausted. I couldn't do it.
Jean launches into a frenzy, a crazed frenzy, trying to push this raft out.
But just as it seems it will never be freed,
The life raft just comes popping out.
She just yelled at me like, I got it, I got it. We have the waves breaking on our legs and pushing us into the boat, and our legs are getting just absolutely cut up. I had to use all my strength to just lift his upper body and slide that in.
And the pain was intense. It was just a series of explosions, you know? I remember the tears that were just streamed down the side of my eyes. And my teeth are just grit. My son was the ray of hope, the ray of light, the steady hand.
My worries were the life raft would pop some point on the reef, like before we were able to get him to safety.
Every one of those steps, there's just these explosions of pain. It's just pure agony, you know? That kind of pain, it takes maybe an hour to even begin to leave you. That peak of pain.
Finally, the whole family is off the boat. But it's been 10 hours since they crashed and set off their emergency beacon. And John is close to death.
I knew my dad didn't have very long to live. I knew he wasn't going to last like till the next day.
It's been 12 hours since the Silverwoods activated their emergency distress signal. But there's been no sign of rescue. Clinging to a tiny outcrop of rock, the family has all but given up hope. And inside the life raft, John is barely conscious, on the edge of death.
I'm surrounded by darkness. I don't have any connection with reality. I would pray, I'd ask God, in return for my own suffering, in return for my own passing, would you please save the life of my wife? Save the life of my kids.
Ben has done everything he can to save his dad. He can do no more. He's now resigned to his father's death.
As the sun came up, I could see this little star flying on the horizon. So I thought it could be a plane.
Help! Help! Help!
I was ecstatic, like someone knew we were there.
And it gets right over us and it starts circling, just circles around and around and around.
But no sooner has the plane flown over them than it disappears over the horizon.
I could see the glimmer from the star kind of just diminished.
Our hearts sank because we realized, you know, we're not going to get rescued.
Two more hours pass, and there's no sign of the plane returning.
Time was definitely running out for my dad. We need like a medic or a doctor here now. I see this boat on the horizon.
The family's emergency beacon had led the plane to the reef. But unable to land, the crew alerted local fishermen on a nearby island. "15 hours after their boat was shipwrecked, their ordeal is finally over."
That was when I finally let go. I just grabbed Ben and I held him and I cried. I can't even tell you the feeling of elation.
I was just relieved, like I just dropped a huge bag or something.
We're actually going to get out of this situation.
David Whittley is about to head off on an epic journey down the Colorado River.
As early as I can remember, I was off in a little boat rowing around on water. I've discovered that I really, really enjoyed that kind of activity and the beauty and the solitude of the great outdoors.
Well, it looks like I'm going to be the only one on the river. We might as well pull up over there and start unloading.
David has been on a waiting list for a permit for 2 years. But when another raft trip is suddenly cancelled, it opens up the window he's been waiting so long for.
I was living a life of a bachelor and had no particular personal ties that would inhibit me from doing a trip like this.
But while David craves the solitude, the permit has also come in winter, a time when few others dare to take on the river. And this will be his first ever solo journey. David's journey down the Colorado River takes him through the remotest part of the canyon, hundreds of miles from civilization. The journey of nearly 300 miles goes without a hitch, and he soon forgets his earlier apprehension.
And then all of a sudden, your velocity increases dramatically. The sense of acceleration can be disorienting in and of itself. Lava Falls has an actual waterfall, a 14-foot drop. I was terrified. It is readily avoidable if you know what you're doing and pick the right course.
But David is now completely out of control.
I can remember very vividly my boat turning vertical and nosing straight down the falls. I was slammed forward into my ice chest. The boat, for reasons which I still cannot figure out today, bounced back upwards, even though my boat by then was entirely filled with water. It was upright and I was still in it and we were still floating. My first recollection that I was in any danger was when I found myself floating directly into these rocks. They're sharp pointed and they look like teeth in a dog's mouth. And I was sideways to the current at the time. I knew that was something I really did not want to allow to happen. I did take a powerful stroke with my upstream oar and attempt to pivot the boat around the rocks. believe this is actually happening. I first thought that my boat will be fine and then it'll pivot itself around and float off of this thing.
But the current has pinned the raft tightly against the rock.
And before I know it, the boat shot up in the air. I was just totally stunned. How can the river be that powerful to shoot this 2,000-pound raft up in the air? I remember, looking down at the water and going, uh-oh, we're in big trouble now. I came up underneath the boat. My head was out of water and I was breathing.
The water is barely 40 degrees, and David knows he must get out fast or he'll freeze to death.
I was concerned that I would become entangled in the raft. I'm wet and I'm cold and I'm with an upside-down raft. I remember standing up on this upside-down raft with one oar, trying to navigate downriver to get to this sandy alcove, sort of like a Venetian gondolier with his one oar navigating the canals.
But the river is so powerful, it's impossible to steer.
I tend to turn more than the raft when I try and turn the oar.
Swept past the safety of the alcove, he's now hurtling towards the next set of rapids, with no way of navigating his way through it.
There's literally nothing to hang on to. There are no handholds, no toe holds, nothing.
Desperately fighting for breath in the icy river, David's got to hold on to his raft or risk drowning.
And I managed to grab the lifeline around the boat.
But the powerful current drags him and the raft into huge underwater rocks.
It floated up onto the rocks and dragged me over the rocks with the boat.
David is faced with a desperate decision. If he keeps hold of his boat, he'll be smashed into the rocks. If he lets go, he'll lose everything.
My thinking was, if I don't get out of this river, it's going to kill you. So there I am, standing up on this outcropping, watching my boat float away and calling after it, hoping it would come back to me like I was calling after a dog.
Come on!
I was frightened. I kept hoping that by some bizarre circumstance it would eddy out someplace where I would be able to get to it. And once it disappeared from view, I just go, good God, what am I into now? I realized I was in a pretty serious predicament. There's not even a spot to sit comfortably, much less do anything else. I started, seriously considering what my options were. Do you want to try and hike out of the canyon? Just what are your options?
Trapped at the bottom of steep cliffs, David can see no option but to try to scale the sheer rock wall to safety. It's painfully slow progress. After an hour, he's still only 30 feet above the river.
I'm traversing these rock faces using my toes on little cracks in the rock and using as much caution as I possibly could conceive of, due to the fact that I was alone and, you know, any falls would be catastrophic.
But the higher he climbs, the more unstable the rock face becomes.
This dislodged rock decided to roll down onto my foot. It resulted in breaking a couple of toes as this rock landed on my foot. There wasn't anything I could do about it at the time.
Climbing upwards is agony, but the cliff face is too steep to descend. So he has no option but to keep going.
I grab onto a rock. I'm using it as a handhold to work my way around sort of an outcropping, and the rock comes off in my hand. And then I sort of teetered there for a few seconds, minutes, hours, days, lifetimes, who knows. I lost my balance and fell over completely backwards, sliding head first on my back across this rock face, thinking, you're dead, this is it. My life jacket caught on something. It flipped me completely over in a backward somersault. I hit my chin on something hard enough to break 4 teeth, knocked myself entirely unconscious. I found myself in the Colorado River coming up out of the water, spitting teeth out of my mouth. I could see another sandy spot further downstream from me. I'd say a half a mile down from where I was. I knew that just getting myself into this alcove that I could see was going to be a challenge. And I'm probably a good 30 feet above the river, and lo and behold, right in front of my face is a can of beer.
The beer can is the first sign of life he's seen in over 20 days. But he quickly realizes it must have been washed up in floods years earlier.
This beer has been there long enough that the label is just about entirely faded off of it.
Having lost all of his supplies, David knows it could provide a valuable source of energy. David slowly picks his way across the rocks, and 2 hours later, finally reaches the small isolated cove.
By the time I had actually gotten down to the sandy alcove, I'd pretty much dried out and warmed up just from exertion.
Only now does David realize the enormity of his situation. His quest for solitude brought him to the heart of the Grand Canyon. But it's now left him utterly alone, in winter, when he's unlikely to see anyone for months. Surrounded by mountains at the edge of the river, he's completely stranded. He's lost everything. He has no food, shelter, or warm clothing. And David knows he now faces a freezing night ahead.
I was getting down into the 40s at night. I was aware that the most immediate threat to my health and sanity was going to be hypothermia.
With no way to call for help, and all his tools and equipment lost, David knows he must rely on himself and his ingenuity if he's to stay alive. Without food, David's body has no calories to burn to generate warmth, putting him at even greater risk of hypothermia. He needs to keep moving, but fatigue finally overwhelms him.
I woke up and was startled that I had fallen asleep and was concerned and frightened by that. Well, geez, if I let my guard down, I'm not going to make it.
As he faces his third night out in the canyon, the desire to sleep is overwhelming.
It's only me and the moon and the rock formation and the river, and you may be able to see it again tomorrow, and you may not. I really was feeling, really dejected and wondering why I ended up in this situation to begin with.
David is clinging to the hope that by now his friend will have raised the alarm, and tomorrow rescue will arrive. After 4 days fighting to stay alive, it seems a search party has finally come looking for him.
I jumped up and down and waved my arms.
Help! Hey!
You're looking at this plane, and you can clearly see it.
Hey!
I'm wearing a bright red life vest.
Here!
It's just inconceivable that they can't see you.
Hey! Here!
But as the plane banks away, David realizes he's invisible from the air.
Hey! Come back! Come back!
His only hope of rescue
Come back!
has gone. David's ingenuity and determination have helped him survive for 6 days, injured and alone in the Grand Canyon. He expected to be rescued days ago. But now the hostile winter conditions have taken a terrible toll on his body, and he's beginning to lose his mind.
I had all kinds of wild fantasies occurring, you know. The world had been devastated by nuclear explosions, and I was probably the only human left on the planet. Particular incidents or scenes out of my past history would come to the surface of my consciousness.
Hey!
I remember pretty vividly thinking about and remembering events that I had shared with various different friends and so forth, and thinking about them and being sad that, you know, I might not see them again.
Now too weak to gather wood or maintain his fire, David's core body temperature is dropping rapidly. He's losing his battle with hypothermia.
My first inkling that something was happening was the noise of the helicopter. Fairly rapidly increased in volume and noise. When the helicopter came around the corner, I was stood up and I was waving my arms and jumping up and down and crying and laughing. And I mean, there was a great sense of relief. And you know, I've never experienced so many emotions all at one time as I did right then. I was laughing because I was so happy to have survived the whole ordeal, and I was crying because I was so grateful for having survived the whole ordeal. It really was an upwelling of emotions that was totally beyond my normal range of experience.
Having discovered David's capsized raft 20 miles downstream, the park authorities had launched a search and rescue mission.
They were amazed to find me still alive. They told me that they were sure they were looking for a body. The pilot had a sandwich that his wife had made for him. It was probably one of the best sandwiches I've ever had in my life.
Seven days after his accident, David was finally airlifted to safety. He went on to make a full recovery and is still passionate about rafting.
I never did believe it was my time to die. I do believe that you can enhance your chances of surviving by believing that you are going to survive. My life has changed significantly because of this incident. In some deep spiritual sense, that I have a more positive outlook, and I also think I have a better grasp on what it means to be alive.